We're all owned by the Syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 22nd episode of the Sin Syndicate, your guide to the strange and mysterious world of fantasy fucking and astral projected orgasms. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And today we will be answering the question, what if Guy Maddin directed a sexploitation film after mainlining Haxan? And what if it was narrated by a couple brain-dead junior college students? The focus of this episode will be director, author, madman, possible alien abductee, Victor Luminera's 1973 freakout from the underground, Psyched by the 4D Witch.
You see what happened from the page ahead of the mystic witch called Abigail. She came to this world to hex and erase the need for love in the human race. So beware of the 4D witch, beware. She's in your mind, she's everywhere. She came from the belly of the devil's bitch. Beware of the 4D witch.
But first, if you listened to our last episode, you might have heard our sad story about our carefully curated Instagram account getting put in timeout. Well, the update is that the appeal did not go through, and we have started from scratch, Casey, which means we lost some of our lovely followers, like Sean Baker. Please come back to us. But we gained a Joan. Yeah, I don't know. I followed him. He's busy interviewing Mako Kaji right now. So yeah.
Which we'll talk. We should talk about that because I'm pretty miffed about that actually. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, we gained a Joe Bob last night. I saw he threw us a follow. Thank you, Joe Bob Briggs.
Great.
Yeah.
We love having him on board. Yeah, because we talked about it. Like he was promoting sexploitation on VHS before something weird was even doing it. Doris Swiftman and Steve Apostoloff releases at Rhino. And there was another label, I think, but that was the one I remember the most.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, he's kind of known as like the horror guy now, but yeah, he has roots pretty deep in sexploitation. I'd love to talk to him, actually. And I bet he would like to talk about it, too, because it's not something he probably gets asked about a lot, some of the early sexploitation stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's something like there are a few of his films that he like introduced on VHS as Joe Bob Briggs that we could do. Like Suburban Roulette, I think is probably a good one because that was one of the, I would think that was for a long time the only Herschel Gordon Lewis sexploitation movie that was on tape. It was just that one. And I remember he was involved with like Nude on the Moon being released, and I think the Chesty Morgans. So yeah, very good guy.
Yeah,
John Bloom.
Agfa recently put up a GoFundMe is it Patreon? I don't know what it is for the Herschel Gordon Lewis for the Herschel Gordon Lewis restorations. So I don't know if Suburban Roulette is part of that package that they're looking to restore, but that might be a fun episode if they do to maybe revisit with Joe Bob.
Yeah, I think so. And that's one, and I mean, it's another Louise Down. It's, that she is at least in. I think it's probably her last starring role.
Yeah, I really
so I guess before we go, this Mako Kaji. Okay, so listen, Mako, I love you, but people have been trying to get you interviewed for Blu-rays and all this shit for years, and you show up in person in LA where only a handful of people can see you. I'm not happy, girl. You wouldn't even do an interview for Criterion. Come on now.
Yeah, I don't know. Was the money?
I know
right,
Arrow was pissed. I don't know because Arrow released the Female Prisoner films and the Stray Cat films, and I think they tried to get her, and she didn't do an interview. So when I saw she was there in person, I was like, "What? The Earth has moved And yeah, I was just not, I was happy for the people who get to see her, but I'm also not happy because I own all of her stuff. And,
Right.
just do an interview, Mako.
Was it an
you're iconic.
exclusive screening? Like, was it hard to get into?
No, I think Sam Deegan was promoting it. And she's the one. That's how I found out about it. So I was like, "What do you mean, Mako Kaji's there in person?" I don't know how much they paid her, but maybe that was it. Maybe she's asking for a lot of money.
Well,
I think she stays pretty busy, but
yeah, I you never know what's going on with people. Like, she might have just had a change in heart regarding her
possible.
work, like commenting on
Right.
her work in the last few years. That happens, you deal with that probably all the time when talking to people in the sex film industry. Like 5 years
Right.
ago, maybe they wouldn't want to talk, now they might. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Who
in
knows?
her case, I mean, the time to talk was when Kill Bill came out. That was
Yeah.
the best time to talk because all of her songs were getting traction again too. I mean, it was a good money making opportunity for her, and she didn't. Yeah, like Sunny Chiba jumped on that. Mako did not, which I thought was very unusual. So, yeah, I'd love to know the deal. I'm glad that she's come around, but like Mako,
Yeah, I
let's
don't
get you
know.
on camera. Let's get on camera, girl. Let's do
Yeah,
an
maybe
interview.
now it'll open up. Yeah, it'll open up
I would
something.
love that. I would love that. I think aren't those out of print with Arrow now? The Stray Cats and the Female Prisoners. I don't
I'm
remember
not
now
sure. I know that book.
because I've had them.
Yeah.
I bought them when they originally came out because I was like, there's no way I'm missing these because they're all great. So, well, Stray Cats aren't all great, but all
I
the
like
female
them.
prisoner
Yeah,
films are terrific.
Yeah, I know that original female prisoner set included like a nice booklet with it. Did you get that? Because that's
did. Yeah,
Unchained
it's
Melody.
nice.
Yeah, that's out of print.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was one when I had money, I was pre-booking stuff, and now I rarely pre-book anything unless I know that I need like a nice special edition of it.
All right, we won't go down this road.
No, we have a lot of drugs and sex to talk about.
Tell us about this Novak vault.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, so I was making notes. I made notes of updates we had to do because I was listening back to the episode and updating on Letterboxd. I guess I haven't mentioned this on the pod, just on my Instagram, that we have an ongoing mega watch list on Letterboxd where I've added every single movie that we mentioned, not just a sexploitation movie, like every movie that we've mentioned. So like I mentioned Time Bandits last episode, that's on the list. So but I was listening back and I realized oh yeah, we got an anonymous tip from someone in the know. And luckily, we have a lot of good connections to people in the know who will reach out to us and be like, don't tell anybody I said this. But apparently, the Novak library is, I think, 95% fine, which is good to know. A independent party did an inventory. So negatives and original, I think the way they described it was original camera negatives, or at the very least, original negatives are still around for these. So then that begs the question that we keep asking: why is nobody doing anything with this stuff? I think it's too easy to say, well, it's Carmen, because we've had Novak stuff get reissued. I think it's just someone's gonna have to step up, and yeah, I don't know who that's gonna be, but that's good news to know that the Kiss Me Quick negative is there, the Toy Box negative is there, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in charge of that library, I would put out Kiss Me Quick as the first, like, test the waters.
Yeah.
And see how it does. And then, I would put out all the Buckaloos together, but
absolutely,
I'm a super fan. So I'm not like, I don't know how Blu-ray labels work. Are they losing money on any of these releases? Or is it just, they're not making a ton of money? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's always been the only label that was really doing that I remember doing there were two. Anchor Bay and Image were printing major amounts. Like even when they had limited editions, they were like 20,000 copies, 30,000 copies, not that limited. So now we're dealing with limited editions that are like 2,000 or 2,500, or even 5,000, like something low. So the market has definitely changed, but boutique labels have always stayed the same in that they're not necessarily going to be in it for making money.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that the Code Red guys always talked to me about. The Olsen brothers were always like, well, we're scanning this one print and I know we're not going to make any money on it. So why am I doing it? It's like, yeah, then why are you doing it? And it would always circle back to the round of the fact that they liked the movies and they wanted to put them out.
Right.
it was a passion project. So I think if you're in this business, it's for passion projects. It's not necessarily like you're not going to necessarily make a ton of money on everything.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody wants to reach out regarding the Novak catalog, if they want suggestions on what they should release, come talk to us.
I have my Harry Novak lists. I have my Harry Novak ranked lists on Letterboxd, which I'm not finished with yet, but I've watched pretty much all the best stuff. Another update was, I think I might have talked about it last week, but I had internet issues, so that might have been lost in my discussion about the Paul Hunt's of his Paul Hunt's history. But so Canyon Films is, I think we talked about them when we talked about Bob Chan and Alan Patrick, where Canyon Films has been credited to Ed DePriest, because Ed DePriest ran Canyon Films into the 80s, but Paul Hunt was known for taking credit for creating or originating Canyon Films. But the earliest Canyon Films involved both Paul and Ed. So I just wanted to make it known that I think that they co-created that company. I don't think Paul liked giving Ed any credit, because he might have been either bought out or pushed out or something, and he didn't discuss it as far as I can tell. But the fact that they both took credit for starting this company, but only one kept it going for the next several decades, I think is probably indicative of like a split somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
But I thought that was important to note as far as the Paul Hunt history angle.
Yeah. And I think the last update is we talked about a song that played in the toy box during the orgy sequence that we both loved. And you kind of talked about the Jack Millman, Johnny Kitchen catalog. And I was going through it on Spotify. There are a bunch of Johnny Kitchen compilations on there. And I was able to find that song. It's part of a two-parter, kind of a suite by the band Victims of Chance. So it's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. I think it's on most of the audio streaming services. It's called Victims of Chance Part 1 and 2. And that song in particular is in Part 2. And it's the quality's not super great, but I think that's just all that's available. But it's a great song.
Yeah.
I was really happy to find that. I've been playing it all week, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. The rest of the album is good, too. The whole Victims of Chance album is actually worth listening to. Something that I need to do is, so all the Johnny Kitchen stuff that was reissued on streaming and sometimes on like CDR is courtesy of a company called Essential Media Group, and they're based in Florida. And so they're kind of like Unidisc, which Unidisc is based in Canada. Or is it Unidisc? Yeah, Unidisc would buy up libraries so they could release the music digitally and on CD. And Essential Media is similar to that. So I might reach out to them to ask about this Jack Millman library, because I really want the stuff that's in Ride the Hot Wind that shows up in dozens and dozens of films. It seems like their focus is mostly on these bands, these fake bands like Victims of Chance. None of those bands did that music. So the mystery continues, but I'm glad that you were able to ID that song.
Yeah.
Because you were very excited when you when you sent that to me.
I think that was another one that I got from YouTube. Yeah. When the episodes upload to YouTube, sometimes they'll catch copyrights, and that was one of them. But yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, that same Victims of Chance song is on a compilation from Essential Media Group called Fuzz, Psych, and Surf, Garage Sounds of the 60s. It's a compilation from 2013. There's a bunch of bands on here I need to check out.
Yeah, there used to be more sort of instrumental ones streaming for a while, but then those kind of vanished. I don't know where those went.
Yeah.
So the stuff that's left is now like bands and vocal recordings. But yeah, worth a deep dive to see if you recognize anything. And even if you don't, it's really good, like low budget, kind of grungy, rock, psych stuff from the late 60s.
Yeah, I've been going through all those Nuggets compilations again recently because
I love those.
Another project, and I'm kind of back in garage rock mode for a bit here.
Yeah, I like the Pebble series. Back from the Grave. Those are all really good. Yeah, like that. I was around the time I was into sexploitation, that's when I got into garage rock too, because they kind of go hand in hand.
They do,
sort of. I mean, there's something grungy, low budget, these films and the music. So yeah, I love that. I love that stuff.
We of this science-dominated 20th century tend to be smugly certain that we live in a very solid, very matter-of-fact, three-dimensional world. And nothing more. Yet strong evidence now available reveals that deep within and behind this physical world of ours stands another, more ethereal realm, totally ignored by science because of a reluctance to investigate it.
Well, let's talk about the 4D Witch. I know in the past some of these movies that we talk about are not the easiest to find, but it's worth mentioning that this is available on archive.org. I think it might even be on Tubi. I don't know if it's a... Yep. I never trust the versions that are on Tubi, so that's like always my last resort. I don't know if you've viewed that to check if anything's cut.
Sometimes if I go to Letterboxd and it says it's on Tubi, I'll go to Tubi and it's like a Riff Tracks version, and that's not helpful for me because I want to watch the actual movie. And then a few cases where they have a Spanish language version of something with no subtitles or captions, and they don't have an English version. So that does happen sometimes. I think in this case, though, I think it is just like a straight transfer of it.
Okay. Yeah, what's the rights issues with this? I know this was put out by Something Weird. Is it
with
still
Monster Go-Go?
Yeah.
I mean, it's orphaned. It's new. It was copyrighted to New Art Films, but New Art Films doesn't exist anymore, and Emerson Films doesn't exist anymore. And Emerson Films didn't own it in perpetuity. It was reissued. It was released by Emerson in 1973. And then it was reissued in 1976 by Clammill Productions. And there's a copyright at the Copyright Office that has all sorts of wrong information. It's a registration from 2001, which is a year before Something Weird put it out. And it credits Clammill Productions, which is misspelled, and then it also credits it to Lou Tillman Productions, who had nothing to do with this. So this is a great example of a falsified government record at the Copyright Office that someone could get in real trouble for if that was traced. Happens all the time.
Falsified it?
I have no idea. Somebody in 2001 that might have been trying to stop Something Weird from putting it out, but this is not a legitimate copyright representation of the film, because it does not even mention the original copyright claimant that's on the credits of the movie. So that's interesting. But yeah, it's orphaned, so which means there's a copyright notice on it, but it's not enforceable because New Art Films is not around anymore. And from what I can tell from public records for the director, he had no children.
Okay.
So
I know this is a favorite of Joe Z over at AGFA, so maybe they'll do something with it. This is totally like a Bleeding Skull type of picture. I could see them putting on something. Or
if they have film elements, that would be great. But if it's a case where like this is, we've been seeing a lot of Something Weird stuff where all they have is the SBS transfers left, so I don't know if they have a 35 on this.
Well, I mean, what's available now looks pretty good from what I watched. I mean,
right,
you can see all the imperfections in the skin of our leading lady.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a nice transfer from that print that Image did, but yeah, if we want a new transfer for Blu-ray, it had to be from like a film element. Otherwise, it's just an SVHS. And I really don't like when AGFA does that. Some films just don't need to make the jump to Blu-ray because you're not going to have them in HD, so they shouldn't be on Blu-ray. I'm sorry, like unpopular opinion. Yeah, Blu-ray is reserved for it's high definition. If it's SVHS, it's not going to be high definition. So just don't put it on Blu-ray.
Well, I think in response to that, I've seen AGFA doing those compilations where they've kind of like mashed things up and created sort of a new hybrid. Fun. Yeah, I think that's the way to go with these that only have video elements. Yeah,
I agree. I like when they do that. That's very true.
So we'll see what happens with this one because this is ripe for Agfa and Bleeding Skull, or the Bleeding Skull team. They have their own imprint now, don't they?
They do, but it's focused mostly on, I think, 80s and 90s stuff. That's mostly, I think that's, or they do some 70s stuff, but not much. I think they did, I don't remember if that was them or not. It was like Treasure of the Ninja, which was an 8mm thing. I think it might have been Agfa, not Bleeding Skull.
Well, maybe we should read the synopsis of this one.
Sure. Yes. Well, so first, this was volume 46 of Frank Henenlotter's Sexy Shockers from the Vault when Something Weird put it out. And then it was released in 2002 on a double feature with Monster A Go-Go, which they licensed from Jeffrey C. Hoag's Majestic International, which that's a whole thing we can discuss at some other time. Jeffrey C. Hoag is iffy. Anyway, I don't know where he got the rights to this stuff, if he even got it legit.
The synopsis from the DVD is, not even Monster A Go-Go can prepare you for Psyched for the 4D Witch, the most maddening, jaw-dropping, and mind-bending piece of celluloid lunacy ever to play American movie theaters. Innocent little Cindy becomes possessed by the sex-crazed spirit of a Salem witch, while her brother becomes the king of sex vampires in this crackpot oddity told almost entirely in LSD-style psychedelic effects. Advertised as a psychic freakout from the underground, repeated viewings may very well cause brain tumors, chromosome damage, and flashbacks. Consider yourself warned.
The magic words are, let's fantasy fuck now. Just obey my voice when I speak them into your inner ear, which will be once a week at varying times. And I promise you fantastic sex adventures and fabulous orgasm. And I'll still remain a virgin for my daddy? Guaranteed. When do we start?
So, who is the madman behind this psychedelic freakout? There are some pseudonyms involved here, right, Casey?
Yes. So the real identity of this guy was Lawrence Milton Voron. And so he did everything on this movie, essentially. So Victor Luminera, great name, is credited for writer, producer, director, casting director, costume designer, props, and composer. Which composer is crazy because he didn't do any of the music. Now, Larry Milton is obviously Lawrence Milton Voron, cinematographer, editor, special effects, lighting. Milton Lawrence, his name's flipped, is executive producer. So this really was just a one-man operation. And watching the movie, you can definitely tell it's a one-man operation.
Yeah.
But it's a passion project.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, he wasn't going to let anyone else do anything on.
So it's like, what's the passion behind this? Because he has a history in... okay, let's talk about it. Well, so first of all, he was born in 1924 in Oregon. The earliest record I could find of him anywhere was in 1944. There's record of him being drafted and failing to report for induction. So already, and during World War II, not wanting to go to war, very unpopular. This was not Vietnam when people were burning their draft cards. If you got drafted in World War II, you went, and he was not going to go. So I think he went to jail and had to pay a fine. After that, the earliest record that we have of him doing anything related to this kind of weird stuff that we see in the movie is so he founded a company called the World of Tomorrow Foundation in 1958. And we don't really necessarily know what the World of Tomorrow Foundation is. I think it was an LLC that he created to publish books on electromagnetic fields and connections to outer space and astral projection and kind of weird sci-fi adjacent kind of things. But what we can tell is that this was serious. He wasn't doing this just to make a buck.
Wasn't right. This was not like a huckster situation. This wasn't like a Sylvia Browne psychic.
Yeah,
this wasn't like it wasn't somebody. Yeah, because there was. I'm just going by the tracings that we found. Which, by the way, we should credit. There is a user on Letterboxd who basically did a huge info dump on this, where he has put link after link after link, and the guy's name is Joe Buck, and I like crediting sources. So his research is really helpful here, and it led to other paths that I was able to go down. So he first used the Victor Luminera pseudonym in 1964 when he published this book called A Course in Electromagnetic Love, Parts 1 to 7, and it was registered to his real name, but then it also mentions DBS, World of Tomorrow Foundation. And there's a few other books that were published that were connected to that organization. He also published a book called Woman, A Glorious Destiny Awaits You, a new scientific breakthrough revelation, which was published in 1965. So he was obviously interested in these kind of publications, but then I also found very interesting advertisement in this September 1960 issue of a newsletter called Chimes, which was like a newsletter that was mailed out to different people about like the psychic realm, spirituality. It featured a column by Ron Ormond, but I don't know if it's that Ron Ormond. Okay. Might have been, but it's more. But it hit the column in this newsletter opens with a quote from the Bible, which seems to track that it might have been that Ron Ormond. Could have been that Ron Ormond. But this advertisement that I found says it's advertising something called rainbow light. So the advertisement says, at last, lift your vibrations through the scented, mystical atmosphere of rainbow light for inducing relaxation, meditation, and communion with spirit realms. And so you pay... It's a $3 mail-in or 2 for $5. It comes with a reflector, a 6-month supply of mystic incense, and instructions. So if you wrote to him at the World of Tomorrow Foundation in Los Angeles, something called Rainbow Light, which is connected to something that he was really fascinated with, which was the use of color and lighting.
Yeah, like light therapy.
As like therapy. Which you can see in this film, because the film is really told through lighting and effects and things like that, and it's not there's no live sound. The acting is barely there. There really isn't a lot of focus on the characters. Even there's so many cutaways. Mm-hmm. It's really brought together by narration.
I'm trying to picture what this rainbow light was. So it's got a reflector. Me too. It's probably just like a spinning light, maybe with colors, and it reflects off something. And then you just
and then there's
it's got a little incense holder inside or something. Yeah.
Right. And like for $3, so if you order 1 for $3 or 2 for $5, I mean that's not a bad deal. In 1960, let me see what that was. $5 in 1960 worth today.
Like $30 maybe?
$55 today. Okay. So $55 for this. A reflector, 6-month supplies of incense, and your instructions.
Well, how much are people paying for those like rocks, those salt rocks or whatever they are?
Oh, that's true.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Well, that was so this ad is from 1960, but there was also evidence that he was. So in 1959, he went to a convention that was the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America's first national convention. And so he presented something called the New Age Color Symphony, which was a presentation of animated light set to music for therapeutic purposes. And so he was pursuing these theories of color and light used as therapy, which was kind of tied into this very unusual early 40s experimental technique that was turned into films called aurora tone films. Mm-hmm. And that was to assist American soldiers with PTSD after World War II. So it's interesting that he was like actively serious about the use of color and light and its effect on people in their minds and their moods. Whether he was successful with this film, not for me, it wasn't. But who knows? Maybe somebody went to go see this and was kind of like, what an experience,
Yeah, you can definitely see him incorporating it in this film. Mm-hmm. But it seems like sort of a bastardized version of it. Like I wish he did like a film that we can view that is more pure. Doesn't have these horror elements in it. I don't know. Like a true experimental film. That would be interesting to see.
Right. Well, this kind of plays like it's very similar to kind of like underground films that you were seeing in the late 60s, early 70s, but those were really tied to like psychedelics and counterculture. Whereas I think he accidentally was tied to counterculture because of the use of color and light, because that was so popular, and like Jerry Abrams lighting, rock shows in San Francisco and things like that. And that basically the, pop culture tying in color and light to like LSD and psychedelics and things like that. But I'm not finding any evidence that that's necessarily what he was interested in. He wasn't really necessarily interested in psychedelics. He was interested in creating a similar effect to psychedelics just using color and light, which is actually pretty scientific. I mean, similar. I mean, LSD was used in experiments to see how it could treat people with PTSD, other mental disorders, and things like that. So it seems like he's trying to go a different route and just use natural light and color. To see how that affects people.
Well, that makes me wonder, like, what his idea was behind this movie, because it seems like he had serious intentions with his light therapy, but this movie is not serious. Or is it intended to be serious and it just got away from him?
So.
I don't know.
I think it's an attempt for him to try to be more commercial, honestly. So there was an article in the New Orleans newspaper. So the film premiered in New Orleans, actually, on March 23rd, 1973, and it premiered at the Sanger Theater. And there are quotes in here from him in this article where he says, "I would say the strongest point of Psyched by the 40 Witch is the weird and wild, bizarre photography. It's the first to go into the psychic origins of witchcraft. It has a little sexual content, but you can hardly put out a picture nowadays without it. We call it a step beyond the psychedelic, a way to take a trip without drugs. You trip through the weird visions and hallucinations the heroine goes through." So I think it is tied into what his theories are that he had been practicing by the time this came out for over a decade. But it's also trying to connect those theories to something more commercial and popular with more mainstream audiences. Yeah. So like this has horror and sex in it, but it's still using his theories successfully or not.
Yeah. So he is willing to make a compromise here with this.
Right. And he was not a filmmaker, obviously. So, there's a lot of overexposure. The editing is really all over the place. I think he just had a field day in the editing room, just like superimposing things left and right and using stock footage in certain places. And, so
and
it's
all the
interesting.
footage at the college campus. Yeah. It's like so much padding.
Considering how much, when you think about how much footage of the actors there are in this, it's kind of like all that stuff could have been shot in a day, and everything else. The editing probably took longer than the actual shooting of the movie, I think, because it is so frantically edited that it is like because it's all about the visual. So I don't think he thought that actually the photography or the story was that important, because it's all told through narration. It was all done in post-production. So I think he really was more about the visual stimuli of the movie, and that didn't necessarily mean the actors. I think it meant the colors and the light and combining different shots so that it created like a mix of colors, which, all this discussion is not to say that the movie is some kind of like lost gem of psychological color photography, because it is not. It is, I don't know how you would describe it, but it's an experience. I would describe it as an experience.
Could this really be happening? Or is it all a nightmare? I'm dreaming. All I knew for sure was that my heart was pounding with horror at the scene I was witnessing, which grew more gruesome by the moment. But wait, the horror was changing into sexual excitement. Oh no, then Abigail was right. I had become so perverted now in my sexual fantasies that my imagination found even this cannibalistic scene sexually provocative. And soon I found myself approaching another climax.
Well, some of the effects, I think, are something you couldn't do like in your own basement, but I think it works for what it is. And there's some lasting imagery like that. The image of that Fu Manchu mask is like kind of haunting me even a few days after watching this movie.
Well, even like the shot of like the witch with the eyes burn out and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of feels like something, parts of it feels like something that you would see if you were going through like a haunted house at a carnival. Like stuff would come out and come in your face and that kind of thing before it involved like people like torturing you at these scare houses they have now. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of old fashioned in that way. And you can tell this maybe like a 50-year-old guy at that time. He was almost 50. Yeah.
What's this reissue in 76?
So that's why I was only able to trace that because of this fake copyright notice where they misspelled Camille Productions with an E. It's Camille, Clamil Productions. And so they were a very low budget, fly by night distribution company that really only did 99% reissues. They were not producing movies in house. They were a distribution company, kind of like Howard Mahler Films in New York is kind of similar. Or any of these, World Northall, those kind of companies where they were purchasing things and they weren't spending money on producing anything. So that was what that reissue was.
Okay.
In 1976. That was around the same time they reissued Blood Freak too, which is another, I think, Jeffrey C. Hoag connection, because I think he claims he owns that. I don't know if that's true or not either.
So the narration in this,
right. So we don't know who did that. The only other thing. Because he did everything on tech, that covers everything. So we don't need to talk about any of the crew members. Cast, we know we have some sex people. That's it. Narration, post-production, not a clue. Nothing we can really have any kind of revelations about. So no idea who did the dubbing. No idea where it was recorded. No, it was Peter Jason and Company, which was, I think, Bob Chin writes about doing stuff there. It's hard to find information about them because they really were just... They haven't been around for years, so it's hard to find information about who Peter Jason was. He's not the actor, but a very busy post-production editing and sound facility in that time.
I mean, she's clearly not a professional dubber.
Yeah,
but she has like a very modern intonation, don't you think? Like she sounds very today in a certain way. I thought she did.
Sort of. I mean, I think it sounds more like reminds me more of like a cartoon character, sort of. Like, but not over the top, like not cartoonish like a Hanna-Barbera thing, but I don't know. It sounds like a voiceover for animation for me.
I could see that. Yeah.
She's I would say both of the women, including the voice who does Abigail. I think they're very dedicated to this dialogue.
That's a different voice?
As it is. I think it's two different voices, is it not? I don't know. I don't think so. If it is, I could see it being one. But I mean, I was fooled if it was one. I always thought it was two.
Wow, maybe she is a pro. She fooled you.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if he knew that everything was going to be shaped in post-production. This is similar to what we see in the New York films, where they're gonna put care into the dubbing of it because the acting and everything else in front of the camera is not going to be telling the story. It's not as important. So that's like the girl from SIN or even like the Sin Syndicate, which we talked about, where the dubbing is good. It's by professionals because the acting is not professional. So you have to do something to make it resonate with the audiences. So, doesn't look that amateurish.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
What if it was like a Hanna-Barbera voiceover actress or something? What if it was somebody who worked in animation voiceovers who just came and did this voiceover in a couple of hours? But like, I don't know.
Who scripted it out? I assume Milton did.
Yeah, he did.
But what's the direction? Like, what kind of direction did they give her? Because it's like very Valley Girl at times too. It doesn't go with the visuals. It's...
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah.
So why did he choose her, or did he have no choice? Did he just hand this off to a? If he handed it off to the dubbing studio, they would have given it They would have hired a proper dubber. I feel like this was his suggestion. Like, okay, here's this girl. She's my niece or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's too many suppositions. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's not, I don't think, just going by everything in this movie, I don't think that was the most important part of his vision.
Yeah.
The visuals were the important part of his vision. So I think, he couldn't release something that uncommercial that he couldn't have dialogue telling a story. I mean.
Yeah. I'm sure someone even probably told him like, hey, it doesn't, even if he thought it was bad or didn't jive with his vision, someone probably said, well, this is what the kids like, so it doesn't matter, you know, just go with it. Just go with it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a one-man show. I think he just did whatever he wanted.
You're a nice boy and all that, but unfortunately, I'm turning you tonight into something you've always secretly dreaded. A sex vampire. Strictly to make Cindy repent, you understand. Nothing personal against you, Mark. And it's all done through this evil eye. Can you feel it?
He was lucky he got any distribution at all. But Emerson Films was based in San Francisco. So they handled Man of the Hands of Fate, another passion project, which classic. Was very amateurishly put together. So they had dealt with like real amateur hour stuff. But I think also because they're in San Francisco, I think that Joe Emerson was probably aware of like underground films. And so he was like, well, this could maybe work in like an underground cinema kind of way. And that's why they're promoting it as kind of like, yeah, I think that's something that they even put on the thing was a psychic freak out from the underground. Because it's like, well, these are the films that are made by like the counterculture that maybe you can only see it like secret screenings if you had to go to like the Village in New York or down to like Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. It's like, well, here this is like a regular theater to drive in, so you're going to get a taste of this counterculture. I think it's a really good way to promote this otherwise incomprehensible movie, because how else do you promote it?
Yeah. I do wonder, like, the screenings after New Orleans, like where it went, what kind of venues, and, you know, what Milton got.
Emerson was mostly based in San Francisco. They handled East Coast films in San Francisco. So they were like a regional distributor as well as like a national distributor. So like they handled national distribution for Manos and Jenny Wife Child and, you know, like all sorts of other films. So I don't know what kind of bookings this got, but obviously somebody thought it had legs because it was reissued 3 years later by a different company.
Yeah.
And I think it was promoted the same way, where it was like, this is an underground freak out movie. But by 76, that's very old hat. But the fact that Camille put that and Blood Freak reissued, both very dated, both kind of dated by the time they were made, actually. Blood Freak is another like anti-drug movie from 1972 or 3. And it's like, what is this? Like, we're into the 70s now. Like, you know, at that point, the drug counterculture thing was kind of dried up, and at least in terms of the hippie stuff.
Yeah. I also wonder, like, I'm calling him Milton. I don't know, what should we call him?
You want to call him Larry?
Yeah. What he thought of like the drugs in the scene at, you know, in San Francisco at the time. If I'm going to see this in an underground theater, you know, I'm taking some drugs beforehand. That's the experience you want.
Well,
right?
I don't think. Well, he said in that quote he says it's supposed to be a trip without the drugs. So I don't think he's pro drugs.
Yeah, I don't think he. But I'm sure a lot of people were using drugs before watching this.
I have no idea. Yeah, I can't. I don't have any suppositions about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Asking you too many suppositions here.
Yeah, because I'm like, I have not a clue. None of this is documented, so I have not a clue. I might felt about drugs. I don't know. I haven't read his books. So yeah. I have no idea.
Just based on what we can tell about him, though, he doesn't seem like he was a fan of drugs.
But also, like, I can't suppose that people took drugs before going to see this.
Right.
I mean, yeah. Maybe it's called a freak out. I don't see people wanting to take LSD before they go see a movie, because who knows what that's going to result in. I think smoking pot before a movie is probably more popular than taking LSD before you go see a movie. That's crazy.
Yeah,
you don't know what the trip's going to be. I mean, that's not good. I wouldn't do that.
How would you like to have an adventurous sex life and still remain a virgin? I can make it possible. Really? But how can I believe you? Give me a sign of your power, like make something appear by magic over there. Very well. Here's a magic cup for you as a souvenir. Amazing! Oh, okay, I believe you. And I'm interested.
So, Pretty Girl International. Should we talk about that casting group?
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a bit last time too, where like the early softcore stuff or the late softcore stuff in the early 70s was mostly Hal Cthulhu, but of course there were two other agencies at that time, which were Pretty Girl International and Reb Sawitz's really bargain basement one, which was Sunset International. And so Pretty Girl was a guy named Dick James. And so the fact that Pretty Girl is credited specifically in this is very unusual. Because sometimes you'll see Hal Cthulhu credited, you won't see Pretty Girl credited, and sometimes you'll see Reb Sawitz, but not that frequently. But like Pretty Girl had a lot of people that would do hardcore, and you see that in this film, except for Tracy Handfus, who never did hardcore. Something else that I probably should note is that I think a lot of the cast members that were registered with one agency were also registered with the other agencies. They didn't have exclusivity deals because it was kind of like there were certain producers who would rely on one casting agent or another, or maybe they knew that one casting agent would have better girls, or maybe one casting agent was more reliable and could be trusted more than another. So yeah, I think people like Ushi and Naola and other people, I mean, they had portfolios at all their casting agencies, so they would get work coming in on a regular basis. So like Tracy Handfus, I think was with Hal Cthulhu and Pretty Girl. I think Reb was really bottom of the barrel. He eventually took over Pretty Girl in the mid to late 80s after Pretty Girl had been defunct for like a decade. Because Dick James, who ran Pretty Girl, actually sold Pretty Girl around the time, or maybe a little bit after this was produced, like mid to late 72.
Yeah.
And sold it to somebody else that hasn't been documented who he sold it to, but they ran it into the ground over the next several years. So by the time Reb Sawitz wanted to revitalize it, he asked Dick James for permission to take the name and rebrand Sunset International as Pretty Girl, because Pretty Girl had a reputation, and it's just a better name than Sunset International.
Yeah,
and then Reb Sawitz became then known as the Pretty Girl guy, but that wasn't always the case. Dick James was the original Pretty Girl guy. So he was probably the person involved with casting this one at this time.
Okay. Yeah, the cast is interesting because, like you said,
very
Tracy
odd.
Handfus is here.
Yeah.
And then you get,
talked about.
Annette Michael is a standout
wild
performer. Didn't expect to see a girl of her figure in this kind of movie.
No, I don't. It's very jarring because it's kind of like, does Aunt Randy need to be this stacked? Like, is it that important? But Annette Michael, permatan, always big jet black hair, implants. Looked a little older than most of these women, and she didn't always look great. I think she always kind of had a sort of a weary look to her. She didn't do that much softcore. She was primarily in hardcore. She did some softcore. But I was never a huge fan of hers. But she started very, very early. Like she started early hardcore in like 1970. And she was in Anthony Spinelli's first hardcore movie, Diary of a Nymph. She was in Young Marrieds, which Ed Wood directed. Hollywood Babylon with our buddy, I don't remember now.
Ed Forsyth.
Yeah, well, Ed Forsyth. Yeah, I was going to say, we can just cut that out. Annette Michael is interesting to see. I really like seeing Keith Erickson. So Keith Erickson plays, Tracy Handfus plays the best friend, Jan. And then Jan's dad is played by Keith Erickson. So Keith Erickson was another guy, very early hardcore guy, and kind of older, kind of lanky, had kind of like bad teeth and bald most of the time when he wasn't wearing a crazy wig, but huge appendage. Okay. Always no wood problems. So there were movies that he would be cast as the only guy that was shot over a weekend, and he would have no problem delivering like 4 scenes in a day. So obviously a good person to go to for early hardcore. He was also a pretty good actor. I think he's good in comedy and drama, typically. He only did a few softcore movies, but he was he was regularly in a lot of very bad and some good hardcore features. A lot of early Spinelli.
Who was he in The Godson? I'm trying to remember.
The Godson, he is he's the head mob guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's like the father.
Yeah, with a wig. Yeah, with the rug. Yeah, he's the one at the end that John Tall comes to in the car at the end after the job's done.
Oh, yeah, it's a pretty big part, actually. Yeah. Okay.
It's a big part. Yeah, so that's Keith Erickson, dictator. I forget. I think he's who is he? He's the president of the South American country, I believe in that.
Okay.
But yeah, he's typically very good, and women who work with him at that time, they remember him fondly. That he was good, he was nice to them, and everything. So I'd love to know more about him. I'm sure he's no longer with us. He was a little older when he started doing this, but
right.
Yeah, every time I see him, I'm like, oh, great, Keith. I like him. So.
And the gay neighbor, Mr. Jones.
Oh yeah, Mr. Guthrie. So that's Kelly Guthrie, and he plays a lot of roles like this. He plays a lot of gay roles that are like swishy roles in hardcore stuff. But it was a mainstay in the low budget garbage of Rick Tazener and Ray Dennis Steckler. Those are the two guys he worked with on the regular. He was in, I think most people don't remember, as he played Lucifer, the devil in Devil's Playground. Then he was also in the gay version, which Tausner did at the same time, which is Finger Looking Good.
Does he do a swishy Lucifer in that?
Yes, he does. In both. But in the second one, he actually, in the first one is a straight one, but the second one, the straight one, he's still gay in the straight one, but then he actually has sex in the gay one. Does he have sex in the straight one too? I think it's a lot of like fake cum shots, which happens a lot of Rick Tazener stuff. It's a lot of like, I don't know what, shampoo or something. Yeah, it's a lot of some fake jelly and fake money shots.
That's fun.
So Kelly Guthrie's actually really funny in this. I think he's having fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it. Those are the big names, or not even big names, but recognizable people. Yes.
How about stroking my Mr. Jones?
What? Why, you've got the wrong man, honey. Go peddle your sex somewhere else. I'm a homo.
Yeah, so our star, the singular named Margot.
Not the greatest single name for a sexy movie star.
Yeah. And after this performance, I'm not too sad that she didn't appear in any others, but
no, I think what it describes the most resistible charms of Margot. Yeah. Like she's quite resistible. Yeah, I mean she doesn't do much. She wears a giant blonde wig most of the movie. She looks vaguely familiar under the wig, but I don't know if this is a pretty girl situation or if this was just somebody that Boren cast because he knew that she would do nudity. Like, so I'm not sure. I feel like I feel like everyone else that you recognize is because of Pretty Girl, but with Margot, I don't get that impression. And the same with the brother too. I don't, because
it almost makes me think again, like she was a friend or some connection. Because why wouldn't he just cast her that part through Pretty Girl? I mean,
right, especially if it involves nudity. Yeah, it's very surprising. So I don't know. I mean, it's unusual, especially because Tracy Handfoos, the best friend, is Pretty Girl. Her dad is Pretty Girl. See, I feel like the brother and sister are not Pretty Girl.
Yeah, strange.
Interesting. He at first I was like, well, maybe that was his girlfriend at the time, but he married. Oren got married the year this came out, but he married a woman who was like his age. Because I checked the records of the marriage and everything. Yeah, he was born 24. She was born 1924, so they were the same age. They're both almost 50. So this wasn't like a girlfriend or something. Yeah, I'd love to know who Margot was.
What if it's his daughter? I mean,
that's possible. Fucked up, and I hope that's not the case. And I don't know why you asked that.
Well, it's just
why you trying to ruin me.
I mean, there have been cases of
disgusting.
That before.
Yeah, and they should be in jail. Yeah, I don't. That's horrible. No, that's terrible. No, I don't think so. But also the fact that they're on like USC campus, it could have been just a student who was like, "I'll do this gig for a day and show my tatas, and that's it."
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Esoterica. Who's Esoterica?
That's the thing. The witch is like barely visible in this. There's only a few little shots of like her topless. I don't know. Like you mostly see her at the end. And I will say, I don't think that the actors on screen, it's not their voices. So it's not even like a voice of whoever Esoterica is. But, and then the brother is Tom Yarian? Not a clue either.
Yeah.
So,
Margot, Esoterica, and Tom, the stars of this film. Anyways.
Not
the
great.
most interesting,
not great.
Yeah, we're not here for the acting. Okay, let's move on. We're here.
No,
for
like not even like even Annette Michael is not great in this, and Tracy Handfoos is not great in this. Like none of the names we know and love are great in this.
We're here for the lights and the music, but so let's
Yes.
talk about the music here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Theme song.
This was the most interesting. This was my most interesting deep dive into this
There's an actual 45 RPM of this.
Correct. Yeah. And I think Something Weird had access to it when they reissued it on the Something Weird Greatest Hits CD and vinyl. I think that's a rip from the vinyl, I believe. I don't think it's like a rip from the movie. So yeah, it came out on a record company called Rainbow Records. And so the two credited people on it in the film are Joe Bisco and Attila Galam, which I think is the correct pronunciation. So Joe Bisco, interesting. So born in 1931, Joseph Bisco. And so there are recordings and little traces of him all over the industry since the 50s, mostly in country music and like rockabilly and sort of obscure rock and roll recordings. So he did performances as Cowboy Joe Bisco in the 50s, and he released an album with that title or with that name in 1954. Then he also released stuff as Joey Bisco in the 1950s, like a lot of rock and roll kind of dance music. So he is credited for writing the lyrics and the music to this. And so this is completely his creation. The song is totally his creation. But the interesting thing that I thought was very strange was that he apparently executive produced a Bobby Davis movie called Dingle Dangle in 1966, which is lost. Bobby Davis, not great. Bobby Davis did Country Girl. I think he did My Sister's Business. Like he did a lot of really bargain basement trash. So I doubt that this was good either. But Dingle Dangle was then distributed by Camille Productions, the same company that reissued Psyched by the 40 Witch in 1976. So that's a very strange 6 degrees of separation from
it is.
The guy who did the song was involved with Camille Productions before that, because as executive producer means he financed it essentially. But and that's kind of where the trail ends for him.
Who sang the song?
Oh, well, that's the really crazy thing. So the vocalist is credited as Johnny, by the way. His real name is Johnny By the Way. That's his real name.
Okay.
He was a Mormon missionary who was considerably young when he sang this. He released a single called Blue Diamond Ring that Joe Bisco co-wrote in 1971, which was also released on Rainbow Records, the same record company that released Beware of the 40 Witch. So he's the one who sang this, Johnny By the Way. He then started recording religious music or Christian songs into the through the 90s. Now he's an instructor at Brigham Young University, of course. He wrote a memoir in 2004, which I doubt he talks about recording this song in it. He also has written a lot of other religious themed books. He's written children's books. He's written Christian advice books for teens. But the important thing is that he is also in the podcast realm. He co-hosts a podcast called Follow Him, which is religious discussions from a Mormon perspective. So the singer of Beware the 4D Witch is now in the same podcast space that we are telling. So we're talking about him while he is recording, telling people to follow the Bible and be a good Mormon.
You will witness something far more exciting than mere incest between brother and sister.
Oh, like what?
Like acting out of one of my own wild sex fantasies, where a new astral world protege of mine will have sex relations with a snake. I guarantee you the strongest climax yet, just from watching.
Johnny By the Way, you'd be like, well, this can't be a real name. Yeah, it's Johnny By the Way. Just put all those words together. That's his last name, and it's his real name.
And he still uses that name for his podcasting and books?
That's his real name. He has a website, johnnybytheway.com.
I mean,
check
it rolls off the tongue. Why not?
Rolls off the tongue. Yeah, like it seems always a little too perfect, and it also kind of sounds like a counterculture thing, like Johnny By the Way. But that was his name, and he came to it through Joe Bisco. So yeah, it was a Joe Bisco thing. Now, the guy, the other guy on this is Attila Galam. So Attila Galam was a Hungarian child saxophone prodigy who immigrated to the U.S. in 1956. He was 6 years old with his family after the Hungarian Revolution. So like the same time that Vilmos Zsigmond was coming over, he came over. He toured with his family as a child saxophonist. He was on the Ed Sullivan Show. He has said that for years that he was busy on the showbiz circuit, he would have to lie and say that he was he would have to say he was a dwarf because people didn't believe that he was a child. So you're like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm actually like 32 years old and I'm just a little person. So he started a record label, Attila Records, and then he also had his own recording studio in Highland Park. Well, he started a recording studio after he was involved with a lot of garage band stuff in the mid to late 60s with a bunch of different bands. But yeah, that's where the song was recorded. He was he created the production around it, all the instrumentation, all the sound effects and things in the song. So he did all of that. He did an interview a couple years ago where so he had a lot of stuff that was recorded for different movies and a lot of like acetates and demos and stuff. But he said that he took responsibility for this and said he did record stuff for some of the world's worst movies, such as The 4D Witch. That was a funny experience. And then he wrote it off as an abomination.
Hey, well, at least he takes credit for it.
He does. He was not going to live that down. Well, honestly, with like a name as distinctive as his, I think it'd be hard to say, no, that wasn't me.
Right.
It's not like, well, it's not like if he was John Smith. Well, that's another John Smith. It's like, how many Attila Galams are involved with the music industry in Hollywood at this time?
Well, so to be clear, he just produced the record for the theme song,
all of the instrumentals and everything else like that. So he didn't write the song or the music. He just recorded it. So he had like session musicians that did it. So all of the actual music was him.
Well,
the vocals were Johnny By the Way. The music was,
okay. And just to be clear, because there is a ton of music on this, but as we will talk about, it's Pink Floyd music.
Yes, so but we're talking about Beware the 4D Witch
song. Yeah,
we're talking about the song. We're not talking about anything else.
Yeah, it just seems so. That's kind of I don't know. Just seems like a waste of his talents, to be honest. They should have had him score. They should have had him score the whole thing. It sounds like he probably could have, instead of stealing Pink Floyd music.
Do you think that Boren had the budget to pay somebody who had his own recording studio in Hollywood to do this soundtrack? I think it was. It was a place where people would come to record things like record demos, record like cheap soundtracks and stuff. So that's what this was. And he had session musicians and things that were involved. So they were able to just record it based on the music that was written by Bisco.
It's funny he even remembers it because it's just one song. I know. Recorded at his studio.
Well, also, his name is on it. So there's a lot of other stuff that he did that apparently his name is not on it because they're not going to credit a recording studio or like an arranger or a producer of the music. They'll typically credit the singer and the writer composer. And he was not involved with any of that. So because Boren credited him on the actual film itself, it's tough to deny. So people are of course going to ask about it. He doesn't mention any other movies in this interview because, he did them and then it was done. They paid and they left and they took the soundtrack with them. He doesn't know if they ever came out.
Yeah.
But I think in this situation, because Boren was careful to credit everybody that wasn't him, he needed
more names. He needed more names.
Yeah, there's only so many pseudonyms he could use, but also he wasn't going to take credit for something he didn't do.
Yeah. So there's probably a bunch of stuff he worked on that we'll never know about because
we just don't know.
Credited. Yeah.
Right. We just don't know. And he left the music business in like the late 80s, I think. And now he's involved with selling like IT and computer technology to the federal government.
Oh,
which quite a strange departure. He might be retired now, though. I think he said that he was discussing that in like 2016. So he might be retired now. So the song has an interesting background too that you would not expect. I was lucky. I was happy I was able to find anything on the song because I was just like, wow, okay.
All right, Cindy. Let's fantasy.
I'm going to have to be very careful when I cut this episode together with regard to the music I use, because I don't want to get stricken down by Roger Waters.
Well, Roger Waters should love me because we're both on the same side politically. So I'll step in and we'll be like, listen, dude.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. A lot of the music that's used during the trippy sequences is a saucer full of secrets.
Yeah.
Which I actually, in my notes, I just realized I put the wrong year. But also, there's a piece that I heard in this, and I thought it was like a haunted house record or something, because it appears in Mondo Trasho by John Waters. And so John Waters, that whole soundtrack, I don't know if you've seen it, is just stolen music. It's just needle drops. And so I thought it was like, oh, this is a haunted house record that John Waters has access to. It's actually a record called Visage by Luciano Berio, and the vocals are Kathy Berberian.
Oh, okay.
So it's when you hear it sounds like a woman having like a mental breakdown where she's just like making weird vocal intonations. Yeah. That's Visage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I always thought it was like Disney haunted house sounds or something, but it's an actual recording. So you might get a flag on that too.
Yeah.
Maybe. Which is, it is what it is.
Oh, yeah. It is on like some streaming services that
it is
Visage.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. And then the rest is mostly classical music. I mean, you get to hear like Night on Bald Mountain, which is very Olga.
Yeah. Well, it's very rough. It's like
right. But then also, I think it's something that a lot of people of a certain age remember from Fantasia, because Disney did that whole sequence with the devil on the mountain to Night on Bald Mountain. So I think that obviously comes into play with someone like this trying to make like a horror movie. It's like, well, Fantasia, and involves like the devil and Satanism and witchcraft. So it's like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Night on Bald Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Larry Milton was thinking more Fantasia than She Came on the Bus for that use.
Yeah, probably. Because that came out 40, so he was 16 years old when Fantasia came out. So I could see him referencing that.
So yeah, some interesting music. I think the Pink Floyd track works really well. It has it's a good choice. I don't know if that has been an issue with putting this out, re-releasing this, I
don't think so. Let me address that.
Okay.
For a moment. There are multiple companies that will say that. They're like, well, it has so much stolen music in it, we can't do anything about it. Let me just say this. If this came out theatrically and nothing was done about it, the precedent has been set. That was the time for them to do something about it. If they didn't, they can't come out about it because it's video. So if companies are going to tell you like, well, we can't put this out, it has a stolen song in it. Her Name Was Lisa came out with the Led Zeppelin song in it. Like Devil and Miss Jones has Sergio Leone in it. It's a lot of gay porn stuff use Pink Floyd too. So I don't think if any company tries to use that as an excuse, I never buy it because the time is done. Like, those record companies aren't chasing after some 50-year-old sex movie to be like, well, you have my stolen song in it. Yeah. The time to go after them was 1973. Should have done it then.
So you're saying like legally in court, they wouldn't have a case? Is that what you're saying?
No, because the film had already been distributed to the public with that stolen song in it. Mm-hmm. They could potentially have a case, but they're suing. They would be suing the video distributor of it, and they would have to go after the original producers who stole it. They're not around anymore, so they wouldn't really have a case, and also they would look really stupid if they went to court over the use of this song and Psyched by the 4D Witch, released on DVD by Something Weird Video and Image Entertainment. They would look really dumb.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to go to court over this movie that's 50 years old. Yeah. So I think a lot of companies, when they have to change the music, they do it to recopyright that version, because then that stops piracy of their transfer that they've spent money on. So like After Hours did that a lot. A few other companies, VCX has done that. Yeah, a few other companies have done that. But yeah, this one is good to go. That's why I'm like, let's get this back out there. Let's reissue it, please, because I really want more people to see it.
Well, after a nice Chinese dinner, I felt on top of the world again. I'll bet it was all just a crazy hallucination. Somebody slipped me some LSD. That's got to be it.
I really like to read his books, actually. They're on WorldCat, which means that, if you want a copy of it through a university library or anything, you can get it. You can get
the
books.
Feminine Power book?
Yeah.
That one? Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So like WorldCat, if you go to university library or I haven't checked the public library system or anything like that, but if it's on WorldCat, then like say I'm at NYU and USC has a copy, then through that WorldCat system, I can request it and they'll send it to NYU so I can read it. Mm-hmm. I had that happen. Actually, there were a few things I did that with when I was at NYU that they didn't have and they had to get from like UCLA and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, anybody that has access to a WorldCat library system, you should be able to read these books. I'm very intrigued by the Woman a Glorious Destiny Awaits You.
Yeah.
Especially because it's 1965 and that's kind of as feminism is getting its start. Mm-hmm. And so I want to hear what this middle-aged man has to say about women in 1965.
And, I mean, and see if it ties into some of the themes here, which is like, a woman taking control of her orgasm in a way.
Right. So, trying to have an orgasm while saving herself for her daddy, which is one of the lines, right? That's very weird.
Yeah, I think that was just awkwardly written. I don't think it means...
Yeah. No, it didn't mean like that, but it's kind of reminds me of like when dads and daughters do like
those promise ring things.
The promise ring things. And I was just like, that's weird. They were doing stuff like that in the 70s too. Like, don't have sex. Please, can you imagine? I just can't imagine a dad begging his daughter, like, please don't have sex. For me. Please don't have sex. For me. That's really unhinged.
Well, I grew up evangelical, so yeah, I'm well aware of that.
Oh, wow.
Some gentry lore for you.
Oh my God. We don't really get a lot of gentry lore. We get way too much Casey lore.
But I like to just sneak it in every now and then.
You like the air of mystery. That's fair. I have no air of mystery. I used to. I don't anymore. But that's good. Drop little nuggets every once in a while like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
So what else do we... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we need to talk about the Dr. Discovery of Boren's part of Boren's career, where he kind of rebranded himself as Dr. Discovery, which, by the way, was going to be my DJ name. If I ever became DJ, was going to be DJ Discovery.
Okay.
So I feel a kinship to this man now. But so apparently... he started identifying as an alien abductee. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how early this started, actually, because if he went in 1959, when he went to the first UFO convention, I don't know if he already was identifying as an alien abductee at that time. Starting in like 1992, he introduced himself as Dr. Discovery at this gathering for the third annual UFO Contactee Abductee Day Walk in La Canada Flint Ridge. And he presented portraits of American Indian-looking aliens. And so as Dr. Discovery, he described himself as an intuitive right-brain contactee and said that the beings assisted him in his work with channeling the future.
What does that mean?
So I don't know. Well, I think...
How do you read that?
That is a thing where there are people who are more left-brained and more right-brained, and I haven't done the research on that in forever. It was something where, you take like a personality test, where that's one of those things where I think that's one of the things they're supposed to determine. Do you use your left brain more or your right brain more?
Yeah. Well, what does that have to do with abduction?
I'm wondering if it's a way for him to like make himself sound more plausible, or maybe right-brained people are supposed to be more grounded in facts or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But I think there's obviously a reason why he said that, and I'm guessing that's probably why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is 1992. It sounds like stuff that possibly could have tied into his theories from, the 40 years previously. Especially using color and light, and the idea of like astral projection and which is kind of like manipulating time and space, which is similar to like this idea of aliens helping him channel the future. So it's a lot of like parapsychological stuff, which makes this film much more interesting, because then it really is just like, this wasn't just like some commercial venture by some guy trying to appeal to the counterculture.
Yeah.
It was something that he was obviously studying for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to break through to that commercial audience with a very uncommercial film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's, I think, the most interesting aspect of the movie for me, is knowing the seriousness behind the creator. It makes everything about the film kind of have an extra layer of something there. Yeah, obviously he dabbled in a lot of things, so it's hard to really nail him down, but yeah, I think he's a curious guy, and I'd like to see these American Indian looking aliens. I
know. It just makes you wonder. It's like, I don't know where those minutes were taken, where someone took a minutes of the meeting and we're kind of like, well, this is what happened. This guy showed up. But also, something that's interesting is that this movie is not his first attempt to bring sort of space exploration and kind of otherworldly exploration to a mainstream audience, because apparently he wrote a musical.
Oh, yeah.
That was never produced, called From Venus with Love, in 1959. That's like the magic year. So he wrote, he wrote a bunch of songs, but there was a single that came out in 1959 with two of the songs, called Venus, Land of Love and Venus Calling. But then he also registered at the Copyright Office a ton of other songs that all sound like that could be part of this musical. So the titled songs include Love is a Mystery, The Kingdom of Enchantment, Kira from Venice, and End of This World. And they all sound like they could be part of this like space musical.
Yeah.
But related to my personal interests, he also made 2 disco records to also try to appeal to the mainstream. Now, the disco records were put out with a company called Golden Age Records. They're only releases. So this is another situation where Golden Age, kind of like new art, I think it was something that he created. And that they say on the credits that they are from the upcoming show Far Out Encounters. So I don't know if that's a retitling of the Venus musical or if it's a brand new musical that he wrote. But one of the songs is Venus, Land of Love. It's a re-recording of the 1959 song by a studio group called the Wizards of Wonder. And then there was another song, another release called Judgment Day! And there was a fake artist named Prince Dragonia, which I think is probably a character from the musical. I think Prince Dragonia is probably, a prince on Venus or something. And both of them are 2-part singles. So, there's like a vocal part on side 1 and side 2 is like, in a longer instrumental version. And this 78 is kind of long to be doing that on a 45 RPM. He should have put these out as like a 33 RPM, like a 12-inch. That would have made more sense. But I don't get the sense that he was aware of how disco worked. And you can hear these sons on YouTube. You might want to try to include them.
Yeah.
One or both of them in this episode, because they're not great, but they're definitely something.
Evildoers, beware! Wrongdoers, take care! It's coming! It's almost here!
And I think the records are kind of cheap. I think you can get copies of them on like Discogs pretty easily. Yeah, I don't want them, but maybe somebody does. Yeah, he's credited as L.M. Boren on there. Like, it's very professional. Has another pseudonym.
It does seem like he was really like trying to get out there. Like,
he wanted people to get access to his. Yeah, he wanted more mainstream access to his theories, and he wanted people to listen to him about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like it seemed like he was fine marketing and like UFO people and space people and like color and light, and parapsychological people, but he wanted to get through to people who maybe he thought would have a harder time believing these things.
Yeah.
And none of them really worked. I think Psyched by the 4D Witch is his most successful example because it was released twice theatrically in the 1970s. And but even then it was done under a pseudonym. So then it begs the question, like, who was he trying to, if he was trying to get his information out there or get his theories out there in this film, hiding behind a pseudonym isn't going to help that. So it's almost self-defeating. If you're going to release it, it's like, well, who was Victor Luminera? Well, some interesting guy, who knows? And then you move on. Like, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting because, now that you mention it, why did he use that pseudonym unless he got cold feet about it? He wasn't happy with how it turned out. I don't know.
Maybe it was the sexiness of it, because at that time, if you're doing like a sexy movie, but then he uses his real name in like the newspaper article where he's promoting the movie at the premiere. So I don't know. He doesn't even use. So Victor Luminera is only one of the pseudonyms. The other two are just mix-ups of his real name. He never uses his real name on this movie in any capacity at all, which is just, it's interesting. It's almost like he wants the film to do something for him, but he is not willing to take the risk of associating himself publicly with this film.
Right.
On like a larger scale, like a newspaper interview is one thing, but if his name was like on the poster, on the prints, like this is a personal project for me, his name would be all over it. One would think. So I don't know.
She's getting ready to pull the snake out of her rectum now. Imagine, it's been in there for 9 hours in suspended animation in preparation for this ceremony, and here it comes.
From her rectum? Oh no, get me out of here, Abigail.
Quiet on the set. She's reviving it next. The ceremony is about to begin.
Well, you know what I need to look for after this is to see if any rainbow lights exist on. There's got to be like rainbow light on eBay or something. Did you search it all?
No, but also made me think of like, what was the Light Bright? That's what I immediately thought of. I just thought of Light Bright that I had as a kid, where it's like you just plug the lights in and not at all the same thing.
But no incense and
no incense. But it also is Light Bright was kind of therapeutic. I mean, it's just like creating something with the lights and a pattern.
Yeah,
but not. I don't think that was what his idea was.
No, his was a little bit more mystical. There's got to be some collector of like. What was this? 50? What year was the?
That was in 1960 when he. Oh yeah, the Rainbow Light. He was promoting it in 1960.
Yeah, 60s. You know, ephemera.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe nobody ordered it. Would that be crazy? That would be terrible. I feel like somebody probably did.
Oh yeah, somebody.
I feel like somebody did, especially a subscriber to that newsletter. Probably was intrigued enough to order it. And
with that ad copy, yeah.
I know, that's very good. The ad copy is good. Yeah, lift your vibrations sounds good too. Attract the higher forces. Yeah, communion with spirit realms. See, that's the thing. It's like, was he an alien abductee at this time?
Right.
Was he saying that the lights drew the aliens to take him? I don't know. It's not very mysterious. It's and it's one of the things I found while researching this was that apparently. Mike McCollum, who I know listens to the pod because he'll reach out and send me newspaper clippings and press things and stuff. Mike and Chris Poggiali were putting together an article about Boren for Temple of Schlock, but I think they were doing it for a magazine, but I don't know whatever happened with that because this was a couple years ago. So Mike and Chris, if you're listening, what happened with the article? And let me know. And we will include the update in the next episode because I feel like this would benefit from a very substantial deep dive where it puts everything into perspective.
Yeah.
From a biographical point of view.
Yeah. That Letterboxd review that you mentioned, like you said, he just kind of dumped all the information there because even for him, I can probably tell like he didn't have the time yet to put it all together, and putting it all together is, as you can hear, like
takes time.
This is a complicated guy here.
Yes.
Working in a lot of different avenues with different belief systems that kind of connect. They kind of don't. Some of it's commercial. Some of it's, something astral.
Right.
So,
Well, even this episode is like, this is basically a photo dump because we've been jumping all over the place. Like,
yes,
because it's just very much like the movie. So maybe you'll just say we're inspired by the film to be just as haphazard and random as the film.
Yeah, I'd like to hear if Chris and Michael had found out anything more about that musical, because it sounded like it went pretty far in pre-production. He's got songs made for it.
I don't know about that.
No?
And I think recording songs for something doesn't mean it's actually in production. I think it just means that I love these songs so much. Let's get the word out and get people excited about this potential of a musical. It's, you know what it kind of reminds me of? It's kind of like when like a sizzle reel is made for like a movie where they're trying to get financing. I feel like this was a way to be like, yeah, listen to this. Like, and if it's successful as a record, then
build a musical around it.
Start build it. Yeah. I don't think it went very far. I would love to be wrong, but I think there'd be more evidence that it went into production because we would have heard about it. It would have been documented somewhere. But there's only documentation of these recordings of the songs that he wrote and the copyright registrations of the songs. But yeah, I mean, we would at least be hearing, and especially because he was big about publicity.
Yeah.
He would have promoted this. Yeah. Yeah. So
put something out like, hey, we're starting production on. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we see that for films too. I think it probably would have been the same for a production. Well, then it also begs the question, like, what if there was never a script written for this? If he only registered the copyright of the songs, there might not even be a book for this musical. Like, you know, he might not have ever written the book for it. It's just like, well, I have all these songs and they're going to tell the story. I'll figure out the book later, which is, by the way, sign of a terrible musical. Telling you right now, you need the book. The book is what makes the musical. The music can be as good as anything. If it's attached to a shitty book, that's a bad musical. So he didn't copyright the book of this musical, as far as anybody can tell. So makes you wonder. And then if he died, where'd all that stuff go? He had no kids. So really, it's kind of like, where do we go from here? Where does anybody go from here? You know, it's kind of like, but
yeah,
it's definitely worthy of a deeper dive. And the fact that we don't even really have any pictures of him. I think there's one that could be him.
That could be, we're not sure.
It's ever been verified. I mean, the fact that someone who was that into publicity having no pictures of himself is also very unusual.
Yeah. Like even, that, I don't think there's no like book jacket back. That's
a good question. Fold. I don't know. Not on the internet. If we get the books through WorldCat, I don't know if there's a book jacket. That's the thing. I don't know. Well, it was a good question.
I always wonder, like, does it ruin the movie? Demystifying them can make them feel, I don't know, less interesting. I think this one feels more interesting. Do you agree?
Yeah, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head where I was able to figure out so much information about a movie and it made it worse or less interesting.
True.
Yeah. You know, I can't think of any example of that. I mean, the only example I can think of is, we talked about Anne Perry last week. I don't really care for her movies that much anyway. But
I was going to say, there are cases.
When you find out someone's like a really shitty person or something, then it's like, oh, well, then this movie's not good. But actually, I can't think of any examples of that either. I think it only amplifies their work, especially if you're able to find bits and pieces of who they were in the film. And it, especially in a genre like this, where everything is so commercial and it's about making a buck with naked ladies, and that's it. That's the name of the game. And as we talked about a lot, when you have directors that are putting a lot of themselves into this, and you find out that they were like into film, or they were like Mark Haggard was into John Ford, or like Chuck Smith was into like film noir and stuff like that. It makes their work more interesting because you're able to see that part of themselves in the work. And in this case, because we know now that he did everything on this movie, it makes it almost a more noble failure.
Yeah.
Because it is something that he really was putting so much of himself into. Yeah, I think learning more about him would only make the movie more interesting. Yeah, I don't think anything would ruin it unless you found out that he was like a child molester or something. That's the only thing, probably.
Yeah.
If we found out that girl was his daughter, that would ruin the movie. That would ruin the movie. But I don't think that's the case. thank God, please, praying that's not the case. But yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Come on in, Aunt Fanny. So you picked up my thoughts. Daddy said he won't be back till late tonight. Yes, I picked up your thoughts. But it sure surprised me. I'd never have guessed you were such a sexy wench. Are you a Les or a bi? A Les should know a Les, and a bi should know a bi, shouldn't they? Please come back to this world and be free of that Salem witch bitch.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.